We're starting.
Oh, we already started. Welcome to episode 3 of Beyond the Safari. My name is Ruan. Today's two guests is Tim and Handré. Both of them have been on the podcast before. I think to start, I would like to ask you about a hunting story. And I know there's a hunting story of a warthog that got shot in a full moon.
Were the both of us?
The both of you.
Oh, I do remember that.
You were my PhD.
I guided the guide.
Yeah,
You guided the guide.
I PH'd the PH.
No, that was
Handré, just for those of you, well, I say those of you who don't know, that's the most of everyone listening, is Handré has got a bit of a something around him. If you want to shoot a big warthog, get hold of Handré. And it's so ridiculously funny because he goes with me and then he, I can't get it. He gets the nice pigs. He always gets the nice pigs. We were hunting on some family property and we were walking the mealie line, the mazed cornfield, the line that changes from cornfield into natural vegetation. And the full moon had been up for about 5 or 6 minutes, so we always see the change of the direction of the shadow. If your shadow is pointing to the east, you're relying on sunlight. If your shadow is pointing to the west, this is now in the afternoons, obviously, then you're relying on moonlight. At this point, we were already relying on moonlight. Are we allowed to shoot warthog? I'm talking divulging all this info.
I didn't use a light.
We didn't use a light, and warthog are not listed.
No.
So
Animal.
So basically, the pig came out. I pointed to it. I tapped him. Did you use my rifle? Hey, Handré.
I shot with a 308.
So I tapped him on his shoulder and I pointed. And he still said to me, "Put out the sticks." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this pig is really giving us time." And he shot it right behind the ear, dropped in its tracks. It was a big boar, slaughtered out.
No, but there was a few pigs before that. On our way to the side of the cornfield, there was a few pigs that
coming
came across.
In. That's right.
And then we stayed patient and we went to the borderline of the cornfield, and we actually heard him. Well, we heard a lot of.
We heard the maze. Yeah.
Yes, inside, and then
just
there was
kind
a
of
smaller one
appeared.
that came out.
Yeah.
Luckily, I didn't shoot him, and my luck turned. And then about 3 or 4 rows inside, I saw the maze started to move, and I got ready, and he came out. He just stuck his head out of the field, and
he had a broken tusk.
Yes,
and
now the skull is hanging in your house.
Now the skull's hanging in my house because we have an incredible photo where we're under the light of the full moon. Most people haven't shot a big warthog. Most hunters haven't had the privilege to shoot a good warthog boar.
I'm so jealous about that. I've been hunting a warthog for so long.
But he was join us. We not only that one, but warthogs in general. Where we hunted Rondekop, we take off a lot of big pigs.
Yeah, there's big pigs in this area.
And funny enough, with all the rocks that we have, we get good tuskers that have both their tusks. And I use the guidelines that Tim told me one day. Is if you go to a bar and there sits a good muscled guy at the bar with 3 chicks around him, and you take out the one chick, nothing's going to happen. But if you take out the big muscle guy, there's going to be a heap of guys wanting to
replace his territory.
Him. Yeah, replace his territory. So that's what we do here, is we keep the females for breeding, and then it looks like shoot the big pigs and let another big pig come in.
Leave the females. Leave the females so that they can call in the big pigs.
It's been on my bucket list. I've been hunting warthog, and I've shot a few warthog in my life before, but I've never got a big tusker. I've got big bodies before, but I've never got a big tusker. So that's...
I'm inviting you. Come over.
But basically, at the end of the day, I kept the trophy. It's hanging on my wall of big pigs. It was a very memorable hunt. Just a photo under the full, shooting it in complete natural light. Thank you. And I'm not endorsed or sponsored yet by Leupold Optics, but that's just really, really good glass
to look through.
I mean, it was a very memorable hunt.
Well, so today's episode's about Plains Game 101.
Well, we started with Big 101 now. So.
Yeah, Big 101 now is Plains Game 101. Listen, this is a topic that you can speak about for hours and hours, and I think it's a topic that a lot of people have spoken about. But I think it's important to understand what is Plains Game and what is it classified as a term. In South Africa and Southern Africa, I think it's a term that only we use.
I haven't referred anybody from when you read forums, the guys talking in Europe or America about hunting. When they're talking about hunting in their own countries, they don't differentiate between plains game and dangerous game.
No, they talk about big game and small game.
They don't really seem to have that categorization. I myself also like to referring to. So for me, plains game would be anything which is not dangerous game. In one of the previous podcasts, I think Handré spoke about the dangerous 6. It's your big 5 and hippo. Those are dangerous game. And
so is crocodile considered plains game?
Crocodile don't charge you.
So plains game.
So I would say big game. So we spoke about changing the narrative, and I think we need to start making a differentiation between plains game, dangerous game, and big game. Birds also don't fall into plains game.
Yeah.
So it would be all your ruminants and your zebras and all of that kind of stuff is
bush pig.
Bush pig, although very dangerous, you're likely to get charged by it. I think they're smaller than us. They're smaller than people. So dangerous game, if you look, they're bigger than us. There's not one dangerous game animal that's smaller than a human. Everything is substantially larger than a human.
For dangerous game.
For dangerous game,
but
yes.
Plains game, you get Yellow, for instance.
But they don't charge you.
They don't charge you.
They don't charge you.
They
don't have a default setting of I'm angry.
I'm angry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So dangerous game are generally very intelligent, which is why they have the ability to respond like they do with charges and mock charges.
So Handré, what species do you think is the most iconic species for plains game?
I think for a first timer coming to Africa, the most common species that guys will be after in the category of plains game is kudu. So a lot of people want to take a nice kudu bull for the first time, and then smaller animals like impala, warthog, medium-sized blue wildebeest. I think that's all of them are common, and if guys come back for second and third times, they will collect more species, go into black wildebeest and stuff like that, gamesbuck, bontebok. So there's a lot of species, and I think what makes South Africa or Southern Africa so important or amazing in plains game is there's so much
the diversity.
Yeah, the diversity is so much, so big. So there's a lot of species that guys can pick off in the same area. Like if you go overseas, you get a certain amount of animals, or not many animals, but only in a certain area. So that's what makes it important or cool.
Yeah.
Of shooting plains game. There's a lot of
not just elk
species
in the bush.
Yes,
it's all kinds of things.
No, you can go out for one species and then you come back with 3 different species.
I've heard of guys coming. They say, "I'm coming to Africa. On my bucket list is a kudu and a impala and a zebra," and then they go home with black wildebeest,
and
the red-heart wildebeest. They never got the chance to get close to a kudu or an impala. That was on their bucket list, so that's for
the bush improvise.
Yeah, it just happens.
Yes.
Which is the downside of package hunting. So we spoke a bit earlier in one of the earlier podcasts about the positives of a package hunt.
Yep.
Commit yourself to a certain amount of animals, get a good deal. But the downside of it is a lot of guys coming from European or American places, they'll go a whole bunch of seasons hunting on public land or hunting in areas where they don't hunt something, or they maybe get one animal in the time frame of a month or a year. I mean, in a lot of our areas in Africa, in plains game, you can come here and you can shoot at least 2 animals every day on safari. Depending on if you're doing a cull style hunt or a trophy style hunt.
I think where you say the downside of packages, if you get a good outfit, I think what Tim is referring to is you in the package you've got four species included in the package. Now you only at day 5 and you only shot 2 of those species. If you at a good outfitter, they will give you the opportunity. Okay, listen, we're struggling to get a kudu that's included in your package. But let's see tomorrow if we pass by a gamesbuck and a waterbuck that falls in the same spectrum as a kudu.
Yeah.
They'll add that in. So if you not get a kudu, but you get a waterbuck or a gamesbuck, I'll give that to you.
Yeah, you take
in the place of a kudu.
Take it in place of a kudu.
I don't think a kudu for me is not a package animal.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't see how you can sustainably limit yourself to say I want to shoot a kudu in 5 days. I'm going to go now. I'm going to do 2 animals a day, and I'm going to get a big kudu bull. You're going to have to somewhere. You're going to have to compromise. Either you're going to be hunting on a ranched animal, or the kudu is not. We see a lot of photos. We see a lot of stuff. We hear a lot of clients telling us, oh, they shot a 43-inch kudu or a 48-inch kudu with this so-and-so outfitter. And I think that's partially due to the pressure that the outfitter places on the professional hunter places on the client, because the kudu has been packaged.
Everybody wants a kudu. That's
Everybody
why it
wants
gets
a kudu.
packaged.
Yeah.
Everybody wants a kudu, but they don't actually understand the diversity we've got in South Africa and Africa as a whole. I think that's what makes it very nice for international guys to come here, is we've got so much to offer. If you look at, let's say, you hunt in Europe, you've got 4 or 5 animal species in the whole continent that maybe a little bit more.
Open for the majority of the season. Yeah.
It's open for the majority of the season, but you only have a certain amount. How many species do we have on Rondekop, for instance?
There's, if I quickly count, there's about 15 different species
that you can hunt on one property.
On one property, yes.
It's diverse. So you come here, you can tick off quite a lot on your list.
Take what the bush gives you.
Definitely.
So,
and that's what I mentioned earlier is you don't need to travel that far to other properties or other hunting areas, other provinces in the country to get certain animals. It comes back to the same thing. There's a big diversity of animals.
Yeah, and they all look different. They all have different characteristics to them. It's not something
hunting styles. You get animals in different areas. You're gonna hunt. Your way of hunting them are going to be different. So the that's
type
what
of trophies you make with them.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So that's the nice thing of the big diversity of species that we get.
What is the challenging species to hunt here? Plains game. Let's say plains game species. What do you think is more of your
grey rebuck?
Grey rebuck
are known to be.
I would say the tiny 10 as well.
The tiny 10.
They plains game? Coming back to the same topic,
I would say under the broad classification of plains game, they fall under the classification. But that's something that we can
discuss
later. But we've got 2 classifications: plains game, dangerous game, birds.
Yes,
that's the 3 classifications of hunting that we have in Southern Africa. So I think they fall under plains game. But it's a difficult hunt to do.
I'll say depends on what species you hunt, where you hunt, and I can go as far to say what caliber do you have in your hunt. If you're gonna hunt a kudu in the bush, in the mountains, that's also a difficult hunt. They don't call him the grey ghost of Africa for nothing.
People underrate earland. Earland can be a very difficult hunt.
They come in big herds, so there's a lot of
very good eyesight.
Yes, and they can move. They can
you
climb
can't think
mountain.
They can move that big body, hey?
But also shooting springbok coming in hundreds of 100 individuals in a herd. There's also a lot of eyes, and you get them in open plains. So,
and I think a lot of people look at the direct things that influence the hunt directly. But like Handré says, now we're targeting springbok in a herd of 100 or more animals. The communication between the client and the professional hunter to confirm that they're looking at the right animal and looking at the same animal, it becomes challenging.
Definitely. So especially in big herds.
Yes, so there's a challenge on its own. It's just the communication on what to shoot.
And I think to some extent some of the animals will be more difficult for the client and other animals will be more difficult for the professional hunter.
Yeah.
And then it also depends on what you have experience with. I know differentiating between male and female on the black wildebeest for a professional hunter without experience difficult. You need a good pair of binoculars.
And not just the sex of the animals, but the
Maturity.
size of the animal.
Maturity, yeah.
Horn judgment. That's also.
So all of those are factors, but I'd say grey redbuck is notoriously difficult to hunt. Kudu is earned a lot of respect. Eland has earned a lot of respect. I'm like to say waterbuck, but our areas, we're very fortunate to have, I think, some of the best areas for waterbuck in the country. We have a very good success rate going out for big waterbuck bulls, but they are generally quite shy. So I know they can also be challenging. Warthog.
To say warthog.
Yeah.
Warthog is very challenging.
Not if you come with me.
Well,
Stick to my side.
Baboon and jackal
yeah.
are also known to be some of the more opportunistic, challenging type of animals. Bush pig. So there are definitely some animals that can be
Bush pig
regarded
usually gets hunted on bait as well.
on bait at night.
Yeah.
Yes. So there would definitely be some animals that I would say, but even amongst the plains game, the ones that are notoriously more difficult are definitely or more specialized.
I would say go look at a guy's trophy room. Let's say experienced hunter, go look at his trophy room. What has he got abundance of? And what doesn't he really have in there, or just one or two specimens of him? That'll give you a very good indication of what is a species that's hunted a lot and is easy to find, and species that are more difficult. For instance, bushbuck.
Bushbuck can also be very
Bushbuck is firstly dangerous.
Yeah.
People don't think
realize
of that,
how grumpy a bushbuck can be.
You hit that thing wrong, it makes a turn and it comes from behind.
Yeah.
You don't even know that it's coming.
We did a bushbuck hunt in on the Limpopo River up in the northern parts of South Africa, but on the Botswana side. We did a bushbuck hunt, and that's rewarding.
Yeah.
Walking on the river line, on the islands, spotting a lot of different species, evading crocodiles, lying on the riverbanks. But to get a kudu, a bushbuck there is so rewarding. But it's so thick down there, and all the palms, all the plants, all the trees. Really, if you think in other parts everything wants to kill you, but really on the Limpopo Valley there's thorns and thick stuff.
Oh, and you can bump a buffalo.
That's just talking about a bushbuck.
That's I think explains very well what's difficult amongst the plains game.
Yeah, I think terrain plays a role in it as well.
No, there's a lot of aspects that plays a role.
Yeah,
just not just the animal that you hunt.
I know grey redbuck, other than their eyesight and their very alert nature, the terrain it makes it also difficult. The altitude is exceptionally high, so it's difficult to breathe. It's sometimes you'll have to scale cliffs and hillsides to spot animals or get a shot. So it requires quite a bit of endurance from the hunter.
Yeah, and I think that affects shooting distance as well, terrain. For instance, in the bushveld, I don't really think you're going to take a shot further than 150 yards compared to in the open areas like the Northern Free State or even the Eastern Cape. You can expect shots up to 300, 350 yards. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, but us, if you use the terrain and you shoot across the valleys, if you're on the opposite side of a valley, your shots can be far. You can easily do 350 plus on the but open areas as well. But yeah, like you said, bushveld, thick areas, you're going to be close encounters. And your shooting window won't be big.
The interesting thing is bush doesn't always make for shorter distances. We see, I should rephrase that and say, you're not reliant on bush to get a shorter shooting distance. I mean, we use the topography in terms of the contours. A lot of places that have got rolling hills and open grassland, you only see an animal if you come over the ridge line when it's 50, 80 meters away from you. So I wouldn't say bush is a prerequisite for close shooting distances. We often in the plains, we move along the riverbeds or along the walls of washed out rivers.
But that's more where the experience of the professional hunter comes in.
Know your terrain
and the terrain he hunts in. Every guy who hunts an area has got a certain way of hunting his area and a certain way of how he hunts the area. And you can pick that up very quickly. For instance, I know we use a lot of guys sitting on top of a mountain and we relay with a radio saying, this is how far the animal is from you. The guy hunting, we haven't even seen the animal yet.
Yeah.
And you basically talk him into that's one strategy that I know we use in this area. There's guys that use completely different strategies by tracking the animal, following the tracks.
I think knowing another topic, or well, in this topic that we're talking about, is knowing your animals, knowing the routines. When do they drink? When do they at the watering holes? For instance, pigs know where the holes are. And that also is in a way of knowing your area, knowing your animals as well.
Definitely. Warthogs sleep underground. They sleep in a hole. They don't always come out. So you can be walking around the whole day and look for warthog and you won't find them.
Yeah.
So
no, that's a good thing. We can talk about animal behavior as well.
Animal behavior,
yeah,
definitely.
And, especially on dangerous game. Knowing the behavior of buffalo or other dangerous species.
I think that's where local knowledge comes in as well. Knowing your area, knowing your animal. But for instance, blesbuck in the Northern Free State act differently to blesbuck in the bushveld.
Predation.
Definitely. Climate, but that's where local knowledge comes in. That's where, for instance, a professional hunter hunting all kinds of areas.
Yeah.
Him getting there, getting a local tracker, having a local tracker with him, showing him more guiding the professional hunter as well.
Yes.
Helps a lot.
I think a tracker is one of the most important aspects of a hunting group. They can, behind the scenes, they do much more than you think.
Definitely a combined effort. The PH will seldom be able to operate at his full capacity without the assistance from a tracker.
Yeah. Because they usually do the skinning as well. You think you just drop off the trophy and an hour later it's hanging in the cold room and the skin is in the salt. There's so much more about that.
Yeah. And experienced trackers, yes. knowing how to cut that animal, where to take the cuts. That's
But also just tracking down, following a blood trail.
Yeah.
Most of these guys are native to the areas where you hunt, and they know how the animals behavior. And remember the guys, and I learned that in Botswana, is where the good tracking comes from. Is in the communities where they live. They have a small amount of chickens, and in the morning during the night they hear a hassle outside. The next morning they need to check what happened. So they're tracking down a civet or a caracal or a jackal. So the tracking down
sounds like an easy task.
Yeah, so they are born with it.
They're born. That's what they do.
Yeah, that's what they do to protect their own animals.
They've got a different kind of respect for the bush as well. I've seen that.
It's integrated into their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, when I was up in Limpopo for my Figasa course. Interestingly enough, they had 3 bushmen there. That was specifically that week they visited the lodge where we were doing our course, and they couldn't speak a word of English. They had a translator, and they were clicking and clacking and beautiful language. And the head guide, he was a level 3 guide. Got his name now. He plucked a piece of bush off to show the bushmen because they were showing us tracks and all kinds. I couldn't believe it doesn't come from that area, but he's showing us the bush. And he plucks a thing off the bush. No, not the bushman, this guide. And he shows the bushman, and the bushman looks. And the next minute, it looks like a fight breaking up in between these two. And they were clicking and clacking. I've never heard something like that. And the next minute, he puts his hand on his head and he rips out a piece of his hair. And he walks to this tree where that piece of bush got pulled off, and he dug a little hole, and he put his hair in there, and he closed it up. And we were like, what's going on here? And then they clicked and clacked, and they walked off. And I went to the afterwards, I think almost a day afterwards, I went to the translator and I asked him, listen, what did these 2 guys discuss there in this situation? They said, no, the tracker or the guide, he took a piece of branch, he showed it to us, and then he just threw it into the bush, showing no respect to the bush.
Oh, that's interesting.
and he took something away, so they had to give something back. And that's
goodness.
why he took his hair off and gave it back to the tree. Sorry, I took something from you, you're something from me.
And that's very respectful.
Very respectful to the bush. We're steering a bit off topic. Caliber. What caliber must I shoot plains game with?
The variety of plains game is big. So if you're going bigger game in plains game or smaller game, it depends on. But Tim, what do you say?
I would like to quote Dr. on this. Gavin Robertson says, "You carry the rifle which is suitable for the biggest animal on your wish list." You might be hunting springbuck in the Kalahari. You decide, your 243 is a great springbuck rifle. You're going to take out your springbuck rifle, and while you're there, the gemsbuck of a life comes out. Then you're completely underprepared for the undergun to take down the gemsbuck. So make sure then that you have the rifle that you're going to be using for the bigger animals on your list at your disposal the whole time.
And I think you're asking what caliber, but I'll say what gun in the way of what are you familiar with? What gun do you use personally? I think putting a caliber size to an animal or choosing a gun that you use often is better than putting a caliber size to an animal. So if you're familiar shooting a 270, for instance, that's a better rifle than putting an unfamiliar 308 in your hand.
I think anything that also doesn't suffer in America, there seems to be a very strong liking for rifles like 45-70 and 350 Whelan.
I don't even know it.
Some of these calibers that are very unfamiliar to us in South Africa, but they just have too much bullet drop. If you need to take a shot at 150 yards, 200 yards, they're not cut out for the task. For closer ranges, it's a great calibers, great rifles. I have a friend and client who hunts with a 45-70, and he makes a point of it. We've actually managed to get quite a few animals off of his list with using the 45-70.
Low velocities.
But in the same breath, we've missed out on a few stunning opportunities because he just couldn't. The reach of that caliber is not suitable.
The rule of thumb, which I would say for me, is it has to have a 3 in front of its name, and it has to be a bolt action rifle.
Well, I think that's a very good recommendation. 270 hasn't got a
270 doesn't, but that's the exception to the rule. And
your 7 mils.
Also look at the 7 mils.
Yeah.
The 7 mils also fall into that category. But if you have a bolt action rifle that's got a 3 in front of it, from a 375 to a 308 to a 306 to even a 338.
338 is often not spoken about. 300 Win Mag.
300 Win Mag. All of those
very good calibers.
Don't come with a 338 Lapua. No, we're talking about the 338 Win Mag. But generally, if it's got a 3 in the front of its name and it's a bolt action rifle with about a 22 to 20 inch barrel, you are going to
be successful.
Any plains game you'll be able to take.
But I think also a thing that you need to keep in mind is your bullet choice.
Bullet choice is a very big thing.
Doesn't help you come here with a 375 and you're shooting paper bullets, target practice bullets on a big animal. Yes, but you said the 375 is good enough, but your bullet choice is not good enough.
It's not the rifle killing the animal, it's the bullet.
Yes. It's the bullet, exactly. That is the cheapest thing of the whole hunt.
The bullet.
Is the bullet.
And that's the most underrated thing that people look into.
That's the only thing you have that's got contact with that animal.
Yes.
Is the bullet. So, it's a... what are good bullets to use?
Bonded bullets.
Bonded?
Soft points. We try to steer clear of full metal jackets. They don't have expansion. So if your shot placement is not perfect on an animal, you're not going to recover it. Or you're going to have a very long track, at the very least.
But match bullets aren't...
Generally, we try to stay clear of match bullets. They're made of harder materials. They have a tendency to fragment. Especially at higher velocities. So we'd look at any kind of bonded bullet, I suppose. Look, not necessarily to say you have to shoot a bonded bullet, just a good quality bullet. Avoid match points. A bullet that holds together reasonably well.
You need to give the animal the quickest possible way out. If you shoot it, you don't want it to suffer. So
monolithics are very consistent. You'll find very little discrepancies between bullet to bullet on a monolithic. We have these days expanding monolithics, They're an excellent choice for
Barnes X,
plains game hunting. We often get pass-throughs with the Barnes X type of bullets. Makes for very interesting blood trails. It's still very good expansion. So here's the thing, it's an expanding monolithic.
Yeah.
So the hemorrhaging, the wound channel that's left behind is much bigger than in something that doesn't expand. So the animal bleeds out sooner. If your shot is marginal, you've got a better chance of hitting vitals. So that would definitely be my recommendation.
Choose a good bullet.
Yes, I think it's important. Better bullet than caliber.
Better bullet than caliber.
Yeah.
So if I bring a 223 with a Barnes X, is that better than a 30-06 with a shit caliber? Is that what you?
My motto always: you can shoot anything with anything. You just need to have your shot placement correct.
That's a very big point. Shot placement. I would say feel comfortable with your rifle as well. If you have something that, and I'm going to talk to these long range guys that's got a chassis on his rifle with a scope that weighs almost the same as the whole barrel action. Now you're going to carry it for 2 hours in the bush, trying to get that thing on top of sticks and then taking a shot.
You know, open chassis pieces hooking on every piece of branch or belt or strap that you have.
Makes noise. And the fatigue that rifle
heavy.
gives you, you're going to be tired by the end when you get there, and you won't be able to take the shot. So then you can't get the shot placement onto the animal.
Every gun has its role.
Yeah.
You get target practice guns and long range shooting guns, and then you have your not so heavy guns for hunting. But yeah, you can shoot. I'm going to say it again. You can shoot anything with anything. Shot placement is important. You can shoot it. It's not preferable. You can shoot with a smaller caliber. You can shoot a kudu. Or you can kill a kudu with a 243. With a good quality bullet through the lungs, through double lung shot, hard shot. You're going to kill that animal. But you want to give the client, especially when the client is a first timer and not as experienced as others, you want to give him the best opportunity to put a trophy in the salt.
I think another thing what a lot of people realize is they have a tendency to fixate on one or other factor. They fixate on the bullet choice, or they fixate on their rifle, or they fixate on their optic, when actually every single factor that you take into account, it's an accumulation of factors.
Yeah.
You know, your scope will give you a 5% advantage, which is not a massive advantage. Your bullet will give you a 5% advantage, which is not a massive advantage.
But everything combined.
Mm.
But the moment you start adding up those various factors, you're sitting with a match-winning performance at the end of the day.
Definitely. So why are some animals more expensive than others?
Like, could you give us an example? What's expensive?
Well,
Why do they cost more?
Why do they cost
more?
Why do they cost more?
It's demand. It's demand. It comes down to area as well. To get some of, for instance, I'm based in the Northern Free State. We do have good kudu over here, but they occur far less frequently than what they will in bushveld region. So over here, the demand versus the amount that I can supply to my clients, I have to make them more expensive than other animals. Also, you look at how difficult it is if you on a ranch property, on a fenced property, or in a conservation area, how difficult it is to rear that animal in terms of its management. For the ticks, parasites, sicknesses, diseases, fencing, food, there's if you're keeping an animal outside of its natural habitat, you generally you increase the value substantially.
Black wildebeest in the Limpopo Valley.
Yeah, springbuck in Limpopo,
Yeah.
blesbuck in Limpopo. Whereas in the Free State, we find those animals far more readily than, this is their natural habitat.
Yeah,
I think also the you guys mentioning black wildebeest in Limpopo, they don't occur there. So to get them there, transport to release them in the areas where you hunt.
You lose individuals.
Yes.
I think we have to clarify as well that South Africa, I think, is one of 2 countries in the world where you can actually own game as a private individual. I'm talking under correction here.
Private ownership is something over here. I think North America also has private ownership
Of wildlife.
Yes.
Okay.
And a few areas in Europe.
Yeah, and we actually trade with animals. We've got auctions. So
a lot of people don't realize that. This is a tool for a massive amount of propaganda online from the antis. Is people don't realize that 80%, 85% of the animals in the borders of the Republic actually have an owner. They actually belong to a private person.
belong to someone.
They belong to a landowner who can prove ownership over those animals. So, a lot of times we'll receive backlash and hate from people saying, "Oh, it's not your animal; it's there for everyone." Where realistically, that is not the case. It is.
Especially in South Africa.
And which is why we have the numbers of plains game that we have. Is because there's incentive for someone to keep the animal. He can put it into a market, he can breed it and multiply it.
And that falls under conservation.
No, it's absolutely. That's why we say hunting is the greatest tool for conservation. The value, we increase the value. In one of the earlier podcasts, we were speaking about feeding the animals. And, sometimes it'll be as simple as a salt lick. Even in some of our open areas that we hunt here in the Free State, we put down salt lick for the cattle, and we find kudu and waterbuck and fallow deer licking the salt licks. And those animals avoid the neighbors. They avoid the commercial grain farmer who exterminates them the moment he sees them because they eat his product.
Grain.
Whereas our hunting areas, our hunting concessions, when we see those animals, we're like, great, there's animals for our clients to hunt. So what do? We protect them. We don't just shoot them. So
there's a value on that animal.
Even though it's an open area. I mean, the animals are smart. They know where they're not getting hunted. They know where they're not getting shot at. So we can definitely see firsthand how hunting is a very powerful tool for conservation.
And on a private property, the funds that are generated from hunting is put back into feeding, like Tim mentioned, and put back into buying new genetics, filling up the genetic pool on the property to improve the animals and the species on the property. So the value that you put in is always turned around.
Actually, Tim, your family's legacy with black wildebeest, at the stage we weren't allowed to hunt them.
Yeah.
And when it started opening, your grandfather, Lucas,
first private owner of black wildebeest.
And how many were in the country at a stage? It was like
less than white rhinos.
Less than white rhinos.
Less than white rhinos.
And now they're in abundance. They're everywhere.
Yeah. That is essentially because since they opened them up for hunting. And that people could buy. There were a few nature reserves in the Free State that had mostly Sunveld Nature Reserve. In the sort of the transitional zone between the Grassveld and the Kalahari, along the banks of the river. But that was where most of the black wildebeest genetics can be traced back to that reserve, where they only had less than 1,000, less than 2,000 individuals. I mean, now we have individual properties that have more than that on them. So
that's hunting and conservation go hand in hand, definitely. Yeah. What else? What else can you guys think of plains game hunting that we haven't spoke about?
I think the with what do you shoot, what to expect, we covered a bit of everything.
What's the common mistakes that the first time hunter in Africa makes? What do you see a lot?
Zero distance of a rifle is a big factor to losing animals. We always recommend to zero your rifle in such a manner that it's shooting 1 inch to 2 inches high at 100 yards. And we actually have a little bit of a joke amongst our team of professional hunters, and
I know the joke.
We talk about 100 meter or 100-yard shot.
100-yard shot.
When you start probing your client for information and you start discussing, and you ask him, what distance have you zeroed your rifle? And they say 100 yards, which is pretty standard. And sometimes they misunderstand the question. And then you rephrase and you say, so when you aim at the bull, when you point it at the bull at 100 yards, does it hit it inside of the bull? And they say, yes, I hit the inside of the bull. And he feels very proud about himself. But to misjudge the distance between 100 yards and 150 yards is a very easy mistake to make. And if you shoot a small animal like a blesbuck low on its shoulder, you will shoot the front leg off. 3 inches of drop means you've missed the thoracic cavity of the animal and you've just hit the front leg. So whenever we get an animal that we've recovered, or an animal make it back to the skinning shed, or once we get to an animal and we load it and we see a front leg shot off, we all look at each other and we say, this animal was standing at 100 yards. So it's a 100-yard shot. So zero distance is a very important factor.
And that's with rifle shooting, but most people coming over for bow hunting on plains game usually say, I want to kill my first animal with a bow, and they usually choose the most easiest animal to shoot, and that's a warthog and impala, and that's the opposite.
Misconception.
Yes. Misconception, snare jumping.
Yes, so they'll think that's the easiest because it's a small animal, and those two species are so wary and awake when they come in and there's a string being pulled and the arrow is coming, they string jump.
That's
a mistake that people make. That's not
shot placement. Easy. Shot placement's another issue. I'm going to talk a bit from experience over here. We were hunting a zebra with a gentleman from Germany, and the zebra was standing broadside, and I whispered in his ear. I said, "Shoot it in the middle of the triangle." And the shot broke, and the way the shot marked, it didn't look anywhere near where I explained. The animal ran a big circle, still looked very strong. And I exclaimed, I said, "Shoot it in the middle of the shoulder." And the second shot, the client put into the shoulder of the animal. It took a couple of steps and fell over. So we get there to the first shot, and the shot was shot high in the middle of the back. There's a triangle on a zebra's back. And for me, it's quite obvious to think, shoot it in the middle of the triangle on the shoulder or on the top of the triangle on the shoulder. But realistically, in that moment, when you say shoot it in the triangle, we may not be looking at the same triangle. In America and Europe, spine an animal, to shoot an animal in the spine is quite a regular practice. A lot of guys will actually go for the spine shot. But I think you might be in for a bit of a surprise if you try to spine a zebra. They're very big and very tough, thick skin.
Spine's not always what you think it is.
And the spine's not always, especially if you shoot it in the middle of the triangle. So, it's a simple story, but it just illustrates that very simple misunderstanding between the client and the PH.
I think beforehand, important thing is communication and explain shot placement, especially for a first timer, beforehand, because the shot placement on North American game and the shot placement on Southern African game aren't the same.
Definitely.
If you think you're gonna shoot the impala where you think you'll shoot a mule deer in the States, you're gonna make a mistake. So beforehand, talk through shot placement. I know you have that small shot placement book.
Dr. Kevin Robertson's book. That thing is amazing. I would actually say go buy the book before you come to Africa. Go buy the book.
You don't always have signal to use your phone.
But not just that. Put it in your toilet. Every time we go to the toilet once a day, study up.
Yes.
Before you come to Africa, there's so many species. Study up. Most of the shot placements are on African game are the same, but there are differences between them. Yes. So definitely.
So sorry, on that point, like a eland, for instance, I mean, you can get away with the majority of the animals on the low shoulder shot, but a big bull eland has got a massive brisket on him. If you're going to shoot him low in the shoulder, he's going to show you the rest of that property.
Yeah.
So we always say you go high in the lung or halfway up the body on a big bull eland. So we know that's just a quick illustration. Some of the animals have got very pronounced chests, like an oryx, a gemsbok has got a very pronounced chest and a very big, very pronounced shoulders. So the proportions of the animal are not the same when looking at the proportions of something else, like a sable. Sable's proportions, even though they're similar, those two animals, the proportions are completely different.
Yeah, definitely. A mistake I see guys make is they don't take their time enough. And when I say that is when they come to Africa, you've got jet lag. Come to Africa, spend a few days before you go on safari. Get used to the climate, get used to your surroundings, the time of day, waking up. Otherwise, you're going to be in the bush with fatigue and you're going to struggle. I know it's not always possible, but try and work in your first day to be a rest day. And somewhere in between, also work in a rest day. Tell your professional hunter, listen, I would like a rest day on day 3 or day 4, somewhere around there where I go on a photographic safari or
explore the area.
Do something different than just hunt. Otherwise, fatigue kicks in, and then the experience is also not what you wanted. And shoes. Shoes are so important. I've seen guys come with brand new shoes and they walk themselves with blisters. We've mentioned it before.
Yes.
But I can't say too much about it. You have to bring used shoes that you walk a lot with. If you buy new shoes in the States or wherever, wear them before you come.
Now bring the equipment that you're familiar with.
If you're familiar with. Yeah.
What's your favorite of all the plains game to hunt, Handré? You've been hunting for a while now. You've got a bit of experience. Which animal stands out for you?
I think you guys are gonna guess right. if you classify warthog in plains game, that's it.
Go. We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
I had a client. It's actually a funny story. I couldn't control my nerves. I wasn't even shooting. and
Big fever.
I was at the spot that I know this big pig, and that was earlier this year in the rutting season. Well, it's still ongoing, but I saw a bunch of females, a bunch of sows, and I told the client, just hang by, the big bull will come out, and he came out, not with the females, a couple of 50 yards or whatever away from the females, and I saw the bull, but he didn't stand still. He was just keep on walking, and I tried to explain to the client, you see the pig, but I told him, do you see the big shadows behind the trees and stuff like that? I was so not on my nerves, but so excited in seeing this big pig. And at the end, the client didn't even see the pig because my communication was not very good. And we didn't
warthogs will do that to you.
Yeah, and we didn't get a shot on it. But yeah, no, my favorite is warthog.
Go on, you must have a favorite.
Favorite animal to hunt?
Yeah, plains game.
Oh, difficult one.
Putting you on the spot over
You're
here.
putting me on the spot, but there was one hunt that stood out for me. I don't think it's my favorite animal to hunt, but it was with me and you. We went out. You still said, today I'm getting my my waterbuck.
Ah.
Yeah.
My favorite animal to hunt.
Is that your favorite
That's
animal?
my favorite animal to hunt.
I have to say, that was my favorite hunt.
Yeah.
It was early morning. It was cold.
That's the one that you got buck fever.
I got buck fever.
You got buck fever.
Me
Tim
down.
shot it.
Oh, you shot
I was the PH on that hunt.
Oh,
he guided me.
I guided him. And yeah, we walked and it was actually we were quiet and we did everything right.
Wind, shadows, sunlight.
We did
tracks,
everything right.
Everything.
And we got to the end of the property and we didn't see any waterbuck. And we turned around and we slinged our rifles and we started talking and we just started talking. And the next minute I just go, that's my sign of there's something, we need to keep quiet. And we both go down and this massive bull stands in front of us. And the next minute Tim just starts shaking.
The moment is too much.
He just started shaking and I grabbed him like, hey, calm down. We crawled a bit. How far was that shot? Wasn't it?
It was 150 meters, 150 yards.
Didn't even put sticks out. Stood up, shot, dropped right there.
Frontal shot.
Straight.
No,
right.
waterbuck is definitely my favorite. Those charismatic markings.
Smell them.
You can. So that's the other part that adds to the excitement. We'll be driving on a road in one of our areas. So we have fenced areas, conservation areas, and game ranches on the one side of the river, and then there's a river with a big open area where there's about 25,000 acres in an area that's hundreds of thousands of acres, and then cultivated fields on the other side of the river. And we look at the game trails coming in and out of the cultivated fields, and in the mornings and late afternoons you find the free roaming game. So sometimes I watch them for weeks. If I know I have a safari coming up, then I watch to see which areas are the herds moving in, where are the bulls that are by themselves, and then we'll locate the animal, and then we'll try to give it a speculative sort of stalk. And as you start getting closer, you smell that characteristic smell of a waterbuck.
So you often smell them before you see them.
Depending on the vegetation, obviously, but yeah, you often smell them before you see them. And it's very rewarding. It seems to be a very underrated animal, and it's received quite a bit of attention lately. I think they display well as trophies, which is why they've started receiving so much attention. I have a good success rate. Another one that I enjoy a lot is black wildebeest.
Yeah, it's a very challenging hunt.
It's a very challenging hunt. It requires a lot of patience, and we've been fortunate enough to hunt quite a few of them. So I've developed quite a repertoire. I look at the way they swing their tails to know the herd is going to take off, and I see the way they shake their
Get to know
heads.
your animals,
and,
yeah.
you get to know the animal well. So I would say those two are definitely two of the. And then zebra. Zebra is
You like
also.
hunting zebra?
I enjoy hunting zebra because when your zebra falls over.
I'm sorry, I hate zebra.
Why?
They stink.
The processing of the zebra is always a bit of a story.
No, I don't like zebra hunting.
But you often, when you display the flat skin of the zebra, the most remarkable trait is the triangle on the back. And in actual fact, you very seldom get to see the back of the zebra until the moment it falls over.
Falls over, yeah.
So that's always very climatic to see the zebra fall over and get a glimpse of the back skin.
Because they're hindgut fermenter.
Smelly.
Smelly. Look, the hunt itself, that's not where it stops.
That's where it starts.
That's where it starts, and then you have to cut it open, and you have to skin that whole thing. Yeah, I'll do it. Guy asked me this, but yeah, it's not my favorite. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much. We're running out of time. Okay, how do we get hold of you? How do we hunt at Rondekop Safaris?
You can visit our website, rondekopsafaris.com. All the information that you will need, prices, packages, information, what to pack, contact details are on there, and then you can make contact with me or Gert. He's the property owner. Make contact with us, and we'll keep in touch with you guys.
Perfect. And Tim, how do we get hold of you? Dome Safaris?
You follow the thread on the podcast. Read the comments in the podcast.
I'll put Tim's WhatsApp number in there or something, or email address. Email address.
And you chat to me directly.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, cheers.